Good morning, world. It's the 9th of November. It's Sunday, the 9th of November, 2025. I'm going to do something now I've done twice before. I did it once back in the day on a YouTube video when I was just starting on YouTube, somewhere around 2011 or 2012. Then I did it again about 4 or 5 years ago because it was so good. And now I'm minded to do it again with a few additions. So this is the 25 adaptation of the rose. The rose, the most beautiful flower. It starts with a seed. The core, the soul, the heart, the absolute essence. And of course, astrologically, that relates to the sun. Without the sun, we wouldn't be here. It gives us heat and light and life. So it represents that part of us that is fundamentally unique. It is our core being, that little bit at the very center from which everything else comes from, the seed. The moon is when the seed is placed in the ground. It's placed into the dark, ideally on a new moon, and it's placed into the moist undergrowth, where over a period of days, weeks, even months, it nestles into a cranny, sidles up to a little bit of rock, and then when the heat of the sun lights that earth and warms that earth, the seed cracks open and a shoot comes out, and the shoot immediately heads south, and a tendril comes out, attaches itself to a rock and to bits of earth, starts nurturing and feeding and growing and sensing. And then once it's established its root, it starts going up. And then that tendril breaks the surface. A little shoot comes out. And then you start seeing the very first twigs, stalks, leaves of what will become a beautiful rose. And then when it's above the ground, the sun heats it and it lights it, and all of a sudden it shoots up and it accelerates in growth, and a stalk forms, and it grows and grows and grows. And that's Mercury, movement, communication. And then once it's reached adolescence, once it's reached the point of not maximum growth, but the majority of growth, it begins to fill out. Offshoots form, off branches, off twigs, and at the head of it, a little bulb begins to form. And slowly that bulb becomes more and more fecund and fertile and just expands. Doesn't open, but that expands, and that is Venus. And at the end of Venus's stage with the rose, the very top of the bulb just pierces open, and you can see the very first signs of the white or the red, depending which colour the rose will be. And then you get Mars, and boom! The rose opens, and it's there, and it's vibrant, and it's stimulating, and it's full of itself. Look at me. I've got power and strength, vivacity, dynamicism. The rose is at its most strongest, its most virile, its youngest, and its most empowered. And here we start bringing in the asteroids, Ceres. As the rose opens its leaves, the scents go out, the bees are attracted, and the bees come to the rose and they feed on its nectar and carry it away to make honey. This is the nurturing of Ceres. And the rose by this time is perfectly symmetrical. All of the leaves flow around each other, often in a 5-fold pattern, sometimes an 8-fold pattern. Here we see Hestia or Vesta, the symmetry of perfectionism. But the rose is dynamic. It's pushing itself out. It's going, I am here. I am receptive. I am passive, but I am here. Do not mess with me. I am strong. And this is Pallas Athene, the warrior priestess, the protectress of those that can't stand for themselves. And of course, the rose is a kind of epitome of the interface between Venus and Mars. And here we find Juno, or Hera in the Greek, the true manifestation of relating and relationship. And then the rose continues to grow and expand, and it gets big. And the leaves start to expand all the way out, and it gets bigger and bigger. And here we see Jupiter, where the rose has grown beyond its virility. And it's now becoming a bit more old. The leaves are just beginning to look just a little, the petals are just beginning to look a little bit worn and tired. But it's still a beautiful thing. It's overstated, it's large, it's elegant, it's still got an element of scent around it. But it's a bit over the top, a bit large, and this is Jupiter. And then the winds come, and all of a sudden there's a gust of wind. Whew. And most, if not all, of the petals blow away in a moment. And the beauty and the splendour of the rose is gone. But you're still left with the structure, the stalk, the head, a couple of leaves, couple of thorns. Saturn, the basic structure of things. The consciousness of the rose realizes now that it's on an inevitable journey, which it won't come back from. So it starts preparing for transformation. It starts realizing, I can't go back to my virile youth. Best make preparation as to how I can throw fishing lines into the future and seed the future. Accept myself as who I am and use that as a preparation for the future. And this is Chiron. And then a tree falls or a lightning strike happens and something happens and suddenly the rose crashes down. Flat on the ground, broken. Its stem is snapped. Uranus. Sudden change. As the days draw closed, as the nights get longer, the weather gets colder, the leaves from the trees fall on top of a dead rose. And basically the rose becomes subsumed by the earth, and it falls into the earth, in with the rain and the mulch and the leaves and the compost, and its structure begins to break down and dissolve and become nebulous. Neptune. The snow and the ice comes. The body of the rose is gone. All that is left is a head, and that is decaying. But in the core of the head is a seed. And that seed then, under the leaves, under the ice, under the snow and the compost and the earth, it burrows down, it lets itself be sucked into the ground for the winter, where it stays dormant, passive in the underworld, in the dark, waiting for rebirth. and that's Pluto. And then the sun comes, and the whole cycle begins again. To me, the rose is a metaphor for transformation, regeneration, and rebirth, for cycle of the seasons, for cycles of the planets. It's a metaphor. I know it doesn't really happen like this, but who's going to spoil the magic by being a critic? Hope you've enjoyed this. I'll probably do it again in 4 or 5 years' time. Catch you later, world. Bye.